Oke, kalau semuanya udah ada, langsung mulai aja. Oke.
Can I start?
Yes, you may.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nathanael Isaya, as the first speaker from the government side. And tonight, I will be presenting our case in the motion of this House supports cancel culture. First of all, I will be bringing up the problem about cancel culture. Individuals.
Maaf, educator, tapi menurut itu ada pembukaan dulu sebelum kita mulai. Atau bagusnya kita langsung mulai aja, nggak apa-apa. SOP-nya sebenarnya ada itu.
Oh iya, ada pembukaannya waktu itu.
Kalian perlu dibacain peraturannya nggak?
Boleh.
Semua udah paham?
Oh iya, we need that.
Oh, you need that? Ya udah. LO, you take do the opening thing. LO ada nggak?
Ini udah hadir semua ya?
DTSL lengkap.
No, not okay. If there's no LO, I'll just do it very quickly ya. Apa namanya? Each speaker will speak for 7 minutes 20 seconds. POI starts from 1 minute and ends at 6 minutes. No POI allowed outside of that time frame. Reply speeches are done in 4 minutes and 20 seconds maximum. Since this is online, there won't be any dings to signify POI, so please, you guys time yourselves if you're planning to give a POI. And I think that's it. So, by the way, do not interrupt the speaker if they've already started. That's a baseline rule. Okay. So let's start the debate.
Sebelumnya, terima kasih educator. Sebelumnya bertanya dulu ya, ini mau POI-nya via verbal atau chat aja? Kesepakatan antar dua tim sih.
By the way, you don't need to reach an agreement. Kayak just say what your personal preference is. Both teams don't need to have the same POI preference. If one person wants to do it differently than the others, then just so be it. Stay your personal preference.
All right. May I start?
Our team preference would be POIs from the Zoom chat. Yeah.
Okay, you can go ahead, Prime Minister.
All right. First of all, let me reintroduce myself. My name is Nathanael Isaya, and I am the first speaker from the government. And today, I will be presenting our case in the motion of this House supporting cancel culture. Right. First of all, I will be bringing up the problem of cancel culture. Is that individuals that perceive cancel culture is a person that does controversial things, either in the past or in current times. As an example, such as James Gunn, director of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and Kevin Hart, who failed to be Oscars MC because of their old tweet at around 20 years ago. And cancel culture is important because it shows that these people has a form of negligence and has done a morally bad act. Therefore, cancel culture is a good culture that not only focuses on the current situation, but also holds people accountable for their past that does not exist in our current status quo. Cancel culture is a mechanism that is very unique and does not currently exist in the current status quo. And what we support in the cancel culture is to help people change, think, and check their biases. And this form of thinking, changing, and checking their biases does not only apply to the perpetrators, but also to the people who might also share the same belief, but has not voiced their opinions in any shape or form or in any media yet. So the mechanism is by giving cancel culture and supporting it both in online and offline form, and also giving the perpetrator a chance of clarification and basically giving them a second chance. It's not one-sided. And the opposition might also say that this is a bad way of punishment because it instills the fear of discussion or criticism for anything. And to that we say no, because the true nature of cancel culture is that it is supported by a bunch of people. And it indicates that the activities conducted by the perpetrator are universally bad. Second, we say that the nature of cancel culture as a trending topic will put the same amount of highlight to both the perpetrator and victims. So no misjudgment is going to be there. The existence of pro and cons will always be there regardless, as we cannot control people's views. And in also doing cancel culture, it might also reveal some truth that is still hidden, because in cancel culture, it suggests to people to research about what these perpetrators and these victims have done and have been done, has received in the past. So now I will be bringing 3 arguments. The first one is that cancel culture is justified to be conducted because the harm is already conducted in the past and left unnoticed. As we all know, the nature of cancel culture is that it digs up people's past and holds them accountable for whatever they may have done. And usually, the perpetrator of this thing that they got canceled for has a huge influence. They have the power to shape their fans' mind and perspective. And by leaving this unnoticed bias for a long time, their fans and their followers might also develop these views, which is obviously very bad. An example I'd like to give is a corrupt politician that is instantly caught, and a corrupt politician that has been doing the corruption for many years will face the different consequence. Because the point that I'm trying to bring is that the sooner that the problem is solved, it will also be better for the perpetrator, as their consequence will be lesser and the harm that they might do with these very bad beliefs and views is also lessened. And the second argument is that it is the best way to give deterrence. With cancel culture, it will stop people from sharing opinions, which is inherently bad, before thinking about it first. As we all know, in the internet, people might share beliefs that they have not given research to, or they have not given extensive thoughts to. With cancel culture, it will give a form of deterrence and will make people think before they speak, both in the internet or in real life. And the third argument is that even at the end of the day, that it is not proportional, and cancel culture is usually one-sided. It is totally fine, because usually the people that gets canceled also has a huge following, such as my example, James Gunn, the director of Guardians of the Galaxy. He has a huge following, so there won't be any sort of power imbalance, as their huge following will also do their research. They will also think, and they will also find out about what he did. And finally, there will be a discussion of what they have done. And the perpetrators also have a chance to give their own clarification on what they have done, and what is the reason for saying it. And in the end of the day, cancel culture will give room for a two-way communication and a chance for clarification, and also bring awareness to views that might be left unnoticed by many people, and many people not realize that their views is very bad. That is all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Now to open the case of opposition, and welcome the leader of opposition here.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Sorry?
Okay, I'm going to start my speech, my debate in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so as to the government team was saying, originally they were saying that cancel culture is actually two-sided and not one-sided, but towards the end, the government team actually agrees that cancel culture can be one-sided at times, which makes me kind of confused for a second, but I do believe that cancel culture is only one-sided. And the government team also state that cancel culture is supported by many, which is the main problem here. Since cancel culture is supported by many, which really makes the government have no right or no say in it, since the government is only one and there's millions and billions of trillions of people using the internet and you can't really control them. So how fast can the government actually work to control the cancel culture? So this leads to my statement. Cancel culture leads to more negative and disadvantages than benefits. Why? There's a lot of reasons actually. Firstly, like you said before, there's a lot of public figures that are ruined. The careers are ruined due to cancel culture, and like you said before, it was due to their past mistakes. But that really justifies that no one can make a mistake. And if you say that it was due to mistake that was done ages ago, and you know, justice needs to be brought up upon, but does that mean that when they're still a teenager or when they're still a kid, they should be when they're still a kid, then like they should face the consequence now that they're an adult? So when they're a kid, they have like kiddish mentality, whereas when they're an adult right now, like they have a wider point of view or like a more mature point of view. Secondly, I would like to remind you that once more that the actions or statements that they fought against, or like the actions or the statements that these people believe in, they're not actually true. So most of the cancel culture like situations are actually not true, and like some of them is actually like at the end of the once all of the cases are actually searched on and the cases are actually settled on, like it actually goes back, the main point is actually false. So the ones who were the ones who were accused were actually falsely accused on that. And critics of cancel culture says that it is equivalent of letting an angry mob decide a person's fate. This is true, and this really goes back on like, where is the free wills? Where are these people's free will? So there's no freedom of speech, preventing from someone voicing their opinions out of fear they will be personally attacked. And like I said before, cancel culture justifies that someone can't make a mistake. So cancel culture doesn't see age, gender, nor identity. In many of our cases, cancel cultures are due to someone's subjective towards someone's fan base. Like maybe it could be towards one of the YouTubers, or I don't really know what happens with Kevin Hart, but it could be someone's he's being somewhat racist or somewhat like that. So like I said before, it's due to someone's fan base, which actually, if you were to think about it, that person doesn't have a right mindset. That person likes this one person, so he's ruling for that one person to be justified on. He's ruling for that one person to be looked good upon on, and he's willing to make anything. He's willing to do anything to make the other person be falsely accused, be neglected, or be rejected by the community. Next, I would like to remind you that cancel culture, most of the time, and this is saying really most of the time, focusing on something not really worth focusing on. So like cancel culture brings up things that are really like people who, so cancel culture is focusing on things that are really deep down, like buried underneath the surface, like 10s or like 15 years ago, which is really, in my opinion, not worth bringing up for. And like I said before, cancel culture, like it's due to someone's mistake, which can be done in like years that are, that person could not be like in the right state of mind, or that person could not have like the maturity or the mentality that that specific person have right now. The next point is that cancel culture not only not only results in the loss of that person's reputation, but it also destructs that person's personal relations. Like their family will be involved, their friends, their relative, and like previously mentioned, cancel culture mostly, focus on those public figures, which those public figures, their income is based on being a public figure is going to like television, actually working on movies and stuff like that. So if they lose their careers just based on like this one day or this one issues, like the economically it can be hard for them to recover on. And I would also like to mention that also like to mention that sensitivity can't be controlled, no parameter or what to cancel or not to cancel. This means that it goes back to my point where cancel culture is actually biased, and it's based on someone's it's biased and it's subjective to someone's fan base.
Okay, can I start now?
Yeah.
Okay, good evening again, and let me introduce myself again. My name is Michael, and I'm as the second speaker from the government side about this house agree on the cancel culture. So there are so many problems that I have looked through the arguments that you have mentioned before. Like the first, the argument that you mentioned that the government can control the public, that can control the culture because there are too much people. Well, here I want to say, government cannot control the people, but people is the one who control the government. That's just how the system works in Indonesia. Government will work based on what people want. It's not about how the government can control what people want, but it's about the government can assisting what actually people want. If people are judging the person or the perpetrator, I think it's fine in the basis, because that's just the fault of the perpetrator itself. And the government has no rights to take control of what the public wants to say. So that's the first argument that I want to say. And there also you're saying that the effect of the cancel culture makes that no freedom of speech. Well, here's the problem, man. You say that if you say that the cancel culture makes no freedom of speech, then what kind of freedom of speech that you are talking about? Why should people be afraid to give their speech on the public if it's actually not mentioning any other's mistake? I mean, it's just a freedom of speech. What cancel culture take is not about the freedom of the speech, but it's because of the negative connotation that the speech held. That's the problem. That's the problem of the people who get perpetrated because of the cancel culture. And so I want to say again about the mechanism of the cancel culture that our first speaker has mentioned before. It's that first, the cancel culture can be do both online and offline. And the second one is still that cancel culture does not just one side. It's not about cancel culture. It's not about one sided, because with the cancel culture, as we could take example from the Indonesia, say like a Deddy Kobusher's podcast. It can be that it proves that the cancel culture can still give the perpetrator to give a chance of clarification and second chance to say and mention what he did actually. So it actually holds a good sense of justice for both the perpetrators and both the people who were mentioning about what the negativity behind the statement that has been said on the perpetrator's mind. And there's also that through the culture, he can get a chance of clarification. He can make a form of discussion so that people might actually know what the perpetrator means. And I just say that cancel culture has many advantages, and that's what I'm trying to say. And there's another reason why cancel culture is actually important, because cancel culture is the only culture, I would say, it's the only culture that holds people from acting rashly. Through cancel culture makes people like to know what they're saying, like to make people thinking and not acting rashly. And that's why I'd say cancel culture can make people to be realizing of act that what they want to take. As a form of example, that there are so many tweet chats going on the Twitter, but because of the cancel culture, people are now in the 2021 have been really really thinking about what they want to tweet. That's just a part of the effect that takes because of the cancel culture. So there's another argument that I would say that your argument is very untrue. You say that it is not because of the cancel culture, it affects the persons or the perpetrators relative. Well, to be exact, that cancel culture is not the one who affecting that. It's the people or the person it's the person who listen or judge based on their opinions. So it's not about the problem, it's not about the cancel culture, but also but it's the people's mind. And I would say that's all. And if people's relative are get taken, then it's just a part of the problem of what he's doing that makes people what it makes people takes him directly. So there's another point that I want to re-educate. There's also another point that I would like to say is that, again, cancel culture is the best way to give a deterrence. It's just through cancel culture. Let's just say how the significance of the effect that cancel culture takes because of people who were wrongfully mentioning or their arguments on tweet that holds effect to the other people. That's why I'd say in the conclusion that cancel culture benefits and it really helps people a lot on thinking of what they want to do on public. And it can also be a form of discussion. Cancel culture can make a form of discussion through the effect of it. And that is why I'd say cancel culture is in the main objective line. Cancel culture is very good to be safe. And that's all the point that I want to mention again. Thank you very much for the time.
Okay, thank you for that speech. Now I welcome the Deputy Leader of Opposition. Here.
Okay, good night to everybody, fellow educators and debatees, and I am the second speaker from the con team regarding the motion. This House supports cancel culture. First, I would like to say some rebuttals towards the argument stated by the government team. First, I would like to reinstate the statement that James Gunn was used as an example, in which a tweet from 10 to 12 years ago was taken out of his past Twitter past, and I would like to say that people can change. People deserves to change. People deserve the right to be judged and put into a fair trial and not to be in a one-sided attack that causes ones to lose their means of living. You said that they should be accountable, but with accountability, it requires the existence of context. And you also said that they have a chance to clarify. While at this very case that you're stating, he did not have the chance to clarify. His means of making money was taken away from him. His reputation was taken away from him without the chance for him to clarify what he means, whether he has changed, whether he has learned from his mistakes. And I also like to go to the point that you said that cancel culture does do not affect the relatives. But how about these people whose their popularity, their name has been tarnished and ruined by cancel culture? For example, there's a YouTuber called Toby Turner. He was accused for raping his girlfriend due to a single tweet that his girlfriend made. He was rid from YouTube. He was rid of his money. He was canceled offline and online. His family left him and deserted him. And then a few years later, it was confirmed that he was actually innocent. Is that because of him, or is that because of the cancel culture? I also like to state that you said that people control the government and government follow the public. Well, that's where the problem comes. If the government follow the public and there's these cases where people are falsely accused and only comes out a few years later if they're lucky, how about them? Where's their justice? Where's their right to speak? I'd like to also bring another point that context of issue doesn't matter in cancel culture, and cancel culture does not see the issue true. Cancel culture seems to indiscriminately attack perceived offenders. For example, Papa John's founder, John Schnatter, resigned from his position at the company after tapes of him using racial slurs surfaced. He received enormous backlash from the media and was forced to step down from his position as CEO. The only problem is that he did not use the slurs as an attack in that context. He was describing a situation where another fast food mogul, Harlan Sanders, used offensive terms to describe the customers, which, while it is insensitive, it is a far cry from a vicious racism. Yet he was still smeared as a racist and forced to leave the company by his fellow executive, ruining his lives, getting rid of his livelihood, and basically changing his life forever. Context matters, intent matters, background matters, for it paints the gravity and meaning behind every situation and in every moment. And in a system where all that can be ignored easily and looked over, where clickbait and catchy headlines imprints a false biased story to the general populace, where facts can be changed and played upon with cancel culture and its unfiltered form of public jury, people would be no different from sheep just following the strongest and loudest of voices. I also like to say that the first speaker said it's usually one-sided. That's not okay. How is that okay? That rids of freedom of speech. The greatest danger of cancel culture is not only the individual damage that it will cause, but the way it will create and imprint an unfair standard for dialogue in our culture and society. When cancel culture is used to enforce a certain point of view, it damages public discourse significantly. This is a crucial point. This basically promotes that the loudest voices in the internet shuts down someone who simply disagreed, creating a stigma in our society and in everybody's mind to limit their personal opinions, thoughts, stances that to a majority might seem wrong, but although all just in order for them and to not be attacked and discriminated. How is them having to rid of their opinions, having to hold themselves back fair? How is that freedom of speech? And when you learn through fear, you learn to fear the people that makes you afraid. They won't learn that they're wrong. They won't learn that their points is invalid. They'll just learn that they need to fear the people that is enforcing the other statement. And at some point, some people actually grow protective and stronger feeling towards these wrong opinions. And you also stated from the second speaker that cancel culture is the only culture that teach people about their wrongs. How about positive education? How about teaching them? How about enforcing a positive way of teaching these people these stigmas, these wrongs that they do, and not just blindly cancel them and through media that they can barely fight back upon. And I would like to also say that college culture is a very slippery slope and leads to intolerance in democratic societies as people systematically exclude anyone who disagrees with their views. When our discussions have no room for disagreements, when any minority viewpoint is plastered with labels such as bigoted, racist, close-minded, narrow-minded, and when the loudest voices always prevail no matter the context, our discourse certainly will fall apart. Seeking the truth relies on good faith, respectful argument, and not yelling obscenities, on the ability to confirm your your innocence, the ability to talk, the ability to state and also confirm yourself without immediately suffering the consequences, without getting bombarded with consequences and also wrong actions. Uh, if we lose the ability to openly discuss ethics and morality, we will lose the opportunity to learn from the other side, develop nuanced arguments, and ultimately turn into two big echo chambers, which, in my opinion, ironically, that would be quite contradictory to the point of cancel culture. And ironically, also, I agree with the second speaker of the government team, which he said, why should people be afraid? And that's my question to everybody here. Why should people be afraid of speaking their minds? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that speech. Now, to respond to the case of opposition, I welcome the government whip. Here.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let me introduce myself. My name is Orchid, and today I'm gonna talk about some statements that the second speaker has talked about. The first one would be the thing called as they were actually ignoring our mechanism that was proposed by the government. We were proposing about how cancel culture can also be very good to check our own privileges, to check on our own society. And why is that so? Is because the second speaker, uh, Zidni mentioned that clarification and all those things might not be might not be valid anymore since the case is already very huge and all those stuffs. But in the end of the day, both of the perpetrators and also the victims, let's say about the James Gunn guy, that he was actually promoting about white supremacy, right? So the problem is the opposition of white supremacy is let's say black people, right? So that being said, because of having the same amount of highlight, we can actually check that if as white people we have so many privileges, and I think that is one of the very reason why cancel culture can be very useful today. And also to clarify some things, it's to clarify some things. It's not about making people afraid of speak of their opinion, but it's more like it's act of a social control to control people to think whatever they wanna say in the media. Because once again, without cancel culture, we cannot really realize what is wrong. And also mentioning the arguments before from the second speaker about how we actually let's say all right, so it's about how do we really check about people who actually already realize about their past mistakes. How do we know that people hold these intentions? How do we know people actually hold these wrong views without cancel culture? Right. So if without cancel culture, without these specific tool, we cannot really say we cannot really check what's their opinions, what they're holding. Even though if it's in the past, we need them to clarify some things. For example, so lately, there's this pop singer from Indonesia, pop or jazz singer, called Ardhito, and he was being called because he tweeted something. He was calling racial slurs, and I think when we give him the spotlight by cancel culture, we actually give him the right manner to think that it is very wrong to actually say racial slurs, despite that he was actually 12 at that time. He was actually realizing that it was wrong to tweet those kind of things, right? So without cancel culture, we cannot really highlight the problem that is done in past, right? And also, all right, it's cancel culture does not limit people to actually have a second chance. Like we said, in our own mechanism, we actually give the speaker a second chance and also a chance of clarification. If we're talking about like a case that happens already in Indonesia, like 2 years ago, there was this girl who actually claims that she was bullied with amongst like 12 girls at one time, right? And it is very, very problematic that if we actually if you were claiming cancel culture is only one-sided, how about this specific case of this girl, right? She was actually influencing the public to cancel these 12 girls, right? But then like when we give these 12 girls a chance of clarification, it was later found out that this specific girl, she lied about those accusations. And without cancel culture, we cannot really check what's happening, right? So because of the same amount of highlight that is given by cancel culture, we can actually check both sides, right? The other thing that's neat, that is actually important for us to remember is about the power imbalance that the second speaker has mentioned before. So you were mentioning about giving having their freedom after cancel culture, and maybe lost their jobs, lost their careers, and all those stuffs, right? But in the end of the day, there is no such power imbalance, because we were talking about people who is actually famous for, who is actually has the influence of his followers to actually influence for these wrong ideas, right? So in the end of the day, we need to really check what's behind all these quote unquote famous people, right? Oh, also, let's say about the mechanism that we propose about in the form of discussion. Because of this cancel culture would be held in the form of discussion, the person who get canceled gets a second chance and a clarification. Like, it's a two-way communication. That's why cancel culture in our proposal would actually be a tool for us to actually check all these things that can be wrong, right? All right. So lastly about all right. Lastly, I think in the end of the day, right, cancel culture can still help us to realize some things that maybe left unchecked in the past. Even though sometimes we cannot really control, but that way we can actually check whatever happens in the past and whatever behind us. All right. So thank you.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Rio Birfancha from the contradicting team, and I'm the third speaker. All right, firstly, as I quote from the first speaker, the true nature of cancel culture is just a bunch of people accusing a perpetrator. That is exactly the problem. People are subjective. Let me give you an example. There's this rapper called Tekashi 69 that is proven and allegedly proven that to be a pedophile, and that he has committed sexual crimes towards minors. However, he was never canceled or anything. He was when he was sentenced to prison time, but he was never canceled. This is the thing that I want to highlight. The justice system has been made for centuries for a reason, to make sure the alleged or the accused and the victim is trialed fairly. If we keep this thriving, if we keep this cancel culture thriving, a culture that cultivates on this mob mentality, what's the difference between us right now, modern humans, and people who lived centuries ago that didn't have any justice system? Furthermore, the second speaker stated that the second and the third speaker stated that the mechanism you guys proposed is to create a type of discussion between the accused and the victim. However, that is not possible because of the true nature of cancel culture itself, which is to accuse a person until they clarify, which literally contradicts the justice system. The justice system bases itself upon of the fact that a person is innocent until they're proven guilty. However, this mob mentality of cancel culture thrives on the basis of that people are guilty until they're proven innocent. One other thing that the third speaker failed to mention is that about the Ardhito Pramono example, about his tweet about racial slurs. This is the exact problem why cancel culture is a problem, because it doesn't give context or anything, like the third speaker said. So just to clarify, Ardhito Pramono, in his clarification, he clarified that at 12 years old, when he was in high school in Australia, he was sexually assaulted by an Asian man in a train. I remember because I watched the clarification video before, and this is exactly why it's a problem, because he was already accused and almost cancelled before he could clarify. This is why cancel culture is a problem, and that is why the justice system is made. The justice system is made to clarify first and then to sentence if they are guilty or not. Cancel culture cannot create that mechanism. Furthermore, if the House thinks that this mechanism of that they made about discussing is truly effective, what difference does it make between the justice system and the mechanism that they made? Because I see no difference. I see no difference between the difference in discussion and justice system if what they think is two-sided. Because the true nature of discussion is two ways, and this contradicts what the first speaker stated about what cancel culture is, which is a mob, a bunch of people just accusing someone who allegedly did something that has not been proven before. Furthermore, yes, that is enough for my points. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that speech. Now, to conclude the case of opposition, I welcome the opposition reply. Here.
Okay, my name is Irfan Zidni, and I'm here as the opposition reply, and I would like to give my reply speech regarding the motion at hand. To conclude, we from the con team have stated that, for one, context is very vague and also not seen during cancel culture. It also gets rid of freedom of speech and creates a very bad stigma that people have to limit their opinions and also their thoughts and stances due to avoid these very vicious and also violent cancel culture. The opposing team tried to rebut points, stating that their intent is to target people of power, of influence, but ignoring the fact that these people too can lose their livelihood and also have the rights to say and defend themselves. Also, they naively stated that these two people have the rights to speak, have the ability to have a go at one another, which ignores our arguments that mob mentality exists and people are blinded when they become sheep. People during mob mentality would attack whoever they seem is wrong, would be biased, and would do nothing but attack these people without any solid or concrete arguments. The opposing team also tried to state that cancel culture is a very good way of giving a proper consequence towards these artists to educate them, which also ignores our argument that in fact this would only teach them to fear to fear people, not to actually educate them regarding the matters at hand, that this would only prove them negatively towards their popularity and also their careers, and disregarding the ability that we as society could teach them in a positive manner without having to cancel and outright ruin their lives. With these points and also statements above, I believe that in this debate and in this motion regarding cancel culture, we from the opposition team won, and also can be stated that we have proved our points right and clear. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll reply. Now, to conclude the Gov case and the entire debate, I welcome the Gov reply. Here.
All right, my name is Nathan Alisaya as the reply speaker from the side of the government, and today I will be concluding the debate and the arguments that the government team brings. So to reiterate, the mechanism that we brought is to make a system of cancel culture which gives perpetrator a second chance of clarification with a platform that the second speaker has given an example to, which is Deddy Kobisho's podcast. And I'd like to address a few points that the opposition has made. First of all, about limiting the freedom of speech. I believe that I have already brought this point to light by saying that cancel culture is supported by a bunch of people. And you have agreed to this, and you said that the problem is, you said that there is a one-sided mob mentality, and you're forgetting the fact that these people have supporters. these supporters will always support them first and find proof. And they are not mobs. They will research, which is why some cases, such as the case of Audrey, that the third speaker from the government side brought, shows that the supporters will research and finally they will conclude in the fact and the truth, which proves that they are not a mob. The next argument that I find a bit weird is that IU said that an argument that is made 15 to 20 years ago is not that important. We don't believe so because just because people said it a long time ago in the past doesn't mean that they cannot be held accountable for it. And to know that they have changed these views, they need clarification. And where is the platform for clarification? Well, through cancel culture. And about, I'd like to bring back to the point about limiting the freedom of speech. We believe, we've already stated that it does not limit freedom of speech because it will help people to think before they make an argument, not stop them from making arguments. And I'd also like to believe that by stopping cancel culture, you are suggesting an unlimited freedom, and unlimited freedom begets anarchy. And we don't believe that by deleting cancel culture, there will be a healthy debate because there is no mechanism to stop from these real people that really exist from speaking out their very, very bad opinions and influencing others about these bad opinions. There's just no way. The cancel culture is the only way to clarify this and to stop this people from making these bad views and to make people who will make these bad views in the future stop and think. All right, and then I'd like to bring the point of the third speaker about the justice system being very different from cancel culture. I believe that they are very similar. And justice system also has a lot of false accusations, and it's not that cancel culture also doesn't bring any evidence. Like I said before, cancel culture does get people to research and think that what did this guy do? What did this girl do? They will research it, and they are not a mob. They will find out. We have seen many cases of people digging up people's past and finding out the truth, and they are not mobs. All right. And from all of these arguments that I've concluded, we believe that the Department for Civil and Environmental Engineering should win this debate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that reply speech, and that marks the end of the debate. So now I'm going to be making my verbal adjudication. Just give me like, I'd say 10-ish minutes, give or take. I'll be back.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you for the debate, Anisha, Isaya,
That's
Michael.
a solid case. Thank
that
you.
was amazing, Sumpah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Keren.
Jadi agak hitut ya.
Iya, agak hitut bener.
Thank you guys.
Buat semua peserta, mohon tunggu sebentar ya, jangan keluar dulu. Terima kasih.
Okay.
Okay. Hi guys. Everyone's here, right? Okay. Okay. So, thank you for the debate. So my verbal adjudication is going to be divided into. Oh yeah, my name is Bintang from FTUI. So my verbal adjudication is going to be divided into three parts. Firstly is the general comments. Secondly is and secondly is the decision, and lastly is the reasoning behind that decision. So, so I only have like one general comment. What I think you guys could do better in future debates, right? So, I think a massive problem with this debate is basically that both teams utilize a lot of examples. You blurt out like a lot of names like James Gunn, Kevin Hart, Ardhito Pramono, and like a laundry list of people that I am assumed to know. And I don't think that that's quite strategic in a debate, in the sense where you just simply state examples as to what cancel culture might look like, but you don't necessarily conclude or provide a very structured explanation as to why the example that you're bringing is an example that you should use to generalize what all cancel culture will look like. Will all cancel culture look like Kevin Hart's? Will all cancel culture look like James Gunn's? I think that this creates more confusion because it seems that there are multiple types of cancel culture that happens. And I think that if both teams recognize this, it would have been a much more healthy debate where you could tackle like a lot of different issues, like what happens if the cancel culture is false, what happens if the cancel culture, is true and legitimate. I think that it would have been much more dynamic debate and much easier for me to understand. So that's my only general comment. The rest are very, speaker specific. So on my decision, I thought the debate was close. In the end, I do have to give it to Team Gov on the basis of two reasons, right? So on to discussion. The first discussion is whether or not people should even be cancelled, and secondly is what is the best method to hold people accountable, essentially. So on the first discussion, do these people even deserve to be cancelled? So okay, so Gov made the claim that you need accountability, especially when they did like really shitty things, and when these people, said a lot of like things that are racist, homophobic, or whatever. And Op, on the contrary, claims that no, people change over time. They might have done something when they were young, and now they've matured, they're a changed person. And things that happened in the past, it's not even worth bringing up. I think this discussion becomes a deadlock between both teams because of the following reasons, right? First, I think that, Gov claims that these people need to be accountable. Like, okay, fair. That's fair that you want these people to be held accountable. But what I don't understand is if what they're doing is so bad, even in the past, why are they not held accountable then? Why do you have to use cancel culture to gain this accountability? Are there any other alternatives that you've entered into but have failed? Why is this the most effective method? Why is this the only alternative that you propose? So I think without that explanation, I don't really understand that. Okay, they're racist, but why should they be cancelled? That's something that I could never wrap my head around. And on Op, I think that the fact that you said that people change as they get older, that's a fair statement of fact. But what I don't understand is why should people not be held accountable at all? Because even on Op, the nuance was that you guys conceded that, being racist to some degree is not something that you want people to do, right? But in this case, you don't necessarily tell me why they shouldn't be held accountable. And even if you do want them accountable, why are other alternatives much better in comparison to cancel culture? I think that, you guys made very vague, references to court, justice system, and all the things associated with it. But those are left just as jargons. Like, I don't know what a justice. Well, I know, but you have to explain to me what a justice system is, what it looks like, what the process is. You can't just simply tell me, you can just go running to the justice system because it will guarantee you justice. Like, you need to explain to me the process of that. And okay, fair, some things are also not worth bringing up. But then again, I also don't understand what is worth bringing up. You need to tell me what is the standard of something that is worth bringing up so that I understand what is not worth bringing up. So that's why on both sides, I don't really buy into why they should or should not be cancelled. So this is the deadlock. So the second one, this is the biggest stepping point about how do we best hold people accountable. So opposition made claims on several things. First is that cancel culture breeds false accusations. Secondly, it to some degree deters free speech. And thirdly, it becomes a very one-sided dialogue where people can't really clarify themselves. And a lot of these things, they're not necessarily false, but that a lot because you can't really clarify. A lot of things are just taken way out of context. In the case of like Papa John's, for example, and Gov's cling to a benefit is that look, we just want people to rethink what they're saying, to want them to check their privileges, and at the very least deter them from saying or doing anything that is even remotely close to being racist, homophobic, or whatever. So here's why I think Gov takes this particular discussion right. First, I think false accusations are very legitimate, and I think that on opposition side, it's already quite established that false accusations do happen. However, in this particular debate, I do not think that it is a strategic approach, because you are not necessarily debating why you do not like cancel culture. What you are debating is why you hate cancel culture stemming from false accusation. Those are very two isolated things, and unless you can prove to me that false accusation is the general norm of how cancel culture is being done, I think that I would have bought into that argument much more. And I think on opposition side of the house, on Gov, it becomes much easier for them to tackle this. I think government sufficiently responded to this by utilizing the characterization that when you are canceling someone, all the facts are given to light, and it's going to provide a lot of clarity, and a lot of events are being shown to the public, and because all these events are shown, then if something is truly false, then it's going to show, and the allegations won't really come true. So I think that this already sufficiently tackles the idea that false allegations will happen and will hurt people, because this characterization essentially prevents that from happening. And I think that opposition never really came back to tackle this particular response. Secondly, about deterring free speech, I get what you're saying. However, I don't think government really contested it as an argument. I think that when opposition said, people shouldn't be afraid to speak on their opinions. People should not, change their opinions simply because they want to appeal to the majority. I think that's fair. But Gov never. But the thing is, Gov just simply said that, okay, that's fair. We are taking away people's free speech to some degree, but we're doing it for a reasonable reason. We just don't want people to say things that shouldn't be said. We want to prevent people from saying things that will be racist, will be homophobic, or whatever. And I think on Gov, I think that it's already quite clarified that what we don't want is not necessarily the free speech that we're impeding on, but it's certain negative connotations out of that free speech. So I think that provides more nuance into Gov explanation. I think that on op, it becomes a large burden why unimpeded free speech, regardless of what your opinion is, why is that something that you're willing to defend? I think that unless you manage to prove this burden, I think that on Gov, it's just a very intuitive line of reasoning that we just don't want people to do something that offends other people. So thirdly, on the one-sided dialogue, okay, I mean, fair on opposition. On both Gov and Op, there are some instances where, okay, this is one-sided, this is like two-sided or whatever. This becomes kind of a deadlock. But I think Gov managed to break this deadlock at the very end of the debate by wrapping up essentially the idea that people, when you're a public figure especially, you have a legion of fans. You have you have a cult following basically, and you might be invited to like Deddy Kobuser's podcast, for example, if you get cancelled. Like, okay, that's fair, and that if you are cancelled, then you at least are granted a medium to provide explanations for yourself. And I think that if what opposition is concerned about is the one-sided dialogue, I think that Gov managed to tackle that. I think that opposition, if you wanted to truly contest this, you shouldn't necessarily talk about whether or not it's one-sided or two-sided. Just concede that it might be two-sided. However, the quality of the discussion is what you do not like. How do we evaluate the witnesses? How do we evaluate the facts? Is something that you just don't think is effective through cancel culture. I think without that explanation, I think Gov took that thing. Lastly, about the overall impact of all your arguments is that, you know, people become much closer to a lot of their wrong opinions. Because, you know, they grow resentment to the public because they're being cancelled, and, you know, they find solace in what they think is right. I think that this is a possibility. I'm not going to deny that. However, I do not understand why this is the most likely possibility. Why is it more likely for people to gravitate towards their own, you know, skewed opinions rather than listening to the majority? And I think that Gov's alternative that, you know, this will provide deterrence, I think that's also quite under-elaborated, because you don't necessarily explain to me the rationale of why people are so fearful of the public that they are willing to sacrifice their own personal stances in favor of, you know, not being cancelled. How bad is it to be cancelled? I think that on Gov, you don't necessarily explain any of that. I think the opposition already said a lot of examples that would have helped you, but because you didn't co-opt a lot of those examples, I can't really credit you on that. So had you co-opted, I think you would have taken this like minor discussion to your side. But for now, your alternative does not stand, but so does opposition. So because of these reasons, Gov takes the debate. If you guys have any other questions, like, feel free to contact me through whatever medium you find my contact on. Okay, just ask anyone. Okay, so thank you for the debate.
Yeah, thank you, Kak.
Thank you all. Good game.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Adisha. Thank you, Isaiah. It was a very fun debate.
Thank you, Ayu. Thank you,
Seru
Ria.
banget.
Keren
Thank you, guys.
banget.
Keren.
Gue tadi panik dulu.
Yes,
Momen
but-
itu
Nice.
gue kayak oke.
No, bro, when you bring up the bald man Deddy Kobuser, I panicked. Gak lupa he existed.
Iya kan? Kayak Deddy Kobuser itu the form of cancel culture aja di Indonesia.
Man, why you have to bringing up itu trump card banget, sumpah. Dia kayak, oh ya, di talk show
Iya,
anjir.
dia tak membantahkan kan? Iya nggak?
Iya, anjing.